to the High Queen podcast.
Prepare to embark on a journey through books you'll fall in love with, as well as the leading ladies who inspire our own stories.
Our friendship blossomed from pageantry to page turners, sparking a desire to show other women that they too can be their own main character.
I'm Miranda,
And I'm Autumn.
and together we'll lead you through books of all genres, from epic fantasy series, romance, all levels of spice, even to autobiographies of real life heroines.
Now, we are some passionate bitches, so remember, this podcast is rated R. Prepare your ears. It's time to celebrate the heroines who redefine what it means to be brave and bold.
Grab your books, beverage, and bestie, and crack open your book to page 1, A Court of Frost and Starlight. And let's do a quick check-in.
Yay! Yes, I know. So exciting. Okay, my check-in. Oh, I got new nails. By that I mean I did my nails. They're very cute. Those of you who are listening, they're like
Ooh,
lemons, like purple and yellow themes, and you can't really see
adorable.
it on the computer camera here, but I've got like 3D like juicy lemons on my thumbs. I was very excited about these ones.
Bougie.
Yeah, they were fun to make. And weather here in Florida has been phenomenal and very happy to have nice weather again. I don't know if y'all watch the weather like updates across the country, but we have like a polar vortex and a heat dome, and they're all moving through the country at the same time. And at least growing up in the Midwest, I don't know if it's still like that there, Miranda, but it was like whiplash with the weather.
1,000 bajillion percent. Girl, last weekend we had inches and inches and inches of snow. 2 days later, it was 80 degrees.
Yeah.
Then we were down to 50. Now we're back up to like 75 today.
Yes. Yes, the extremes there are much more extreme. I'm experiencing a version of that.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm very excited to sit out like on my sun porch and read our
Mm,
books and just like have my
sounds
coffee.
lovely.
Yeah, once the weather starts getting into this season and the pollen goes away, that's my time to shine. So that's my update.
I love that for you. I do. It sounds delightful. We've had so much up and down. We've had some beautiful weather. Like we've been able to go for some walks, which is just so nice to get out of the house.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you know anything about the Midwest, you know anything about South Dakota, we get whiplash like nobody's business here in
Yeah.
the spring, especially. So it's fine. It's fine. Other than that, though, I don't really feel like I have much of an update. I'm getting my nails done this weekend, but mine are never cool words. Mine are never really as cool as Autumn's because I don't
I
do
just
them
like
myself.
maximalism. I like
Girl,
them to
I
be
love it
like, yeah,
though.
in your
See,
face.
and I'm always, maybe you guys can weigh in. You can tell me. Sometimes I like want to, I do neutrals, but I had this itch. I was like, what if I did yellow or like bright blue? Every once in a while, I get the itch for a fun color. So I don't know. Maybe we'll do something
Exciting.
fun. Yes. But speaking of something fun, this book is something fun.
I know. I love it. Yeah, my initial impression, it's a good cozy read. It's a
Mm,
great bridge book to help us transition from not just solely being in Feyre's mind, which I really enjoy. And my favorite point of views are so far Morgan and Cassian's.
yeah, because they're just the two additional ones, right? We haven't gotten an Asriel or an Elaine.
No, but we get
Yeah.
more Resand than we have in the
Yes.
past. Like we've only gotten, I think, two little snippets from him before.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's an increased amount from him.
Yeah. It's the rotating POVs was not something I was expecting from this book. So when I opened it, like the Resand and Feyre, I was excited for that. But it's
Mhm.
fun getting into somebody else's mind, especially Morrigan, who's like this kind of a conundrum still to us a little bit.
Yes.
And then Cassian, who I felt like I got so much more from him. Like,
Hmm.
more of an understanding as to why he's this like lovable brute of a man that
Yeah.
we have. We went through some emotional turmoil with the end, with the last episode. So this is like a welcome change of pace. It's cute. It's a fun break from like the war and torture and heartbreak and like all
Hmm.
of the other stuff that we still need to figure out in Prythian. It's happening, but we get to focus a little bit more on like the holiday. I love Christmas, solstice, so like it's cute.
I know.
And it feels so normal. Like this book so far is so normal because we're getting more of that like day-to-day life. So like
Yeah,
favorite doing the dishes, donating to charity, buying solstice gifts. Like
I
that's
know.
so fun. I just like how real it
Yeah,
is.
it does. It's a really nice break from
Yes.
my
From
heart
the like
palpitations.
anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. And these are such fun world building moments in their own way too, to just kind of see what life is beyond swords and
Yes, it's
powers
good.
and
Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, they use and have bathrooms. Like, we can talk about that more later. But
Mhm.
like those little nuggets that I'm
Indoor
like, I don't
plumbing.
know. Like, I figured you just snapped your fingers and your dishes were clean. But no, we're out here actually washing our dishes, going to the
Yeah.
bathroom, buying gifts.
All the things. I know, I know. Well, I guess let's jump into our first point of or not our first point of view. Our first I guess it is our first point of view too, but our
It
like
is.
our story, what we're getting from this. So Feyre starts by taking us through a very simple, beautiful day in Valaris, just like we talked about, this good stuff that we needed after a
Mm,
very harrowing book. And
mm,
Rhysand is apparently off in another court, another land. I'm not really sure. It's not described exactly, but everyone is preparing for Winter Solstice celebrations. Feyre updates us on the lives and whereabouts of some of the characters that we missed. Elaine is staying in the townhouse. Nesta has an apartment that Feyre doesn't really like to think of. And Lucian, post beat up from Tamlin, has a
mm.
luxurious apartment down by the river. Now, she gives us her own update about how she's been spending her time volunteering for multiple charities that have been made to help those who are struggling after the Valaris attack. That sounds about right for her.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we get so many POVs like we talked about. And the first one that comes up is Rhysand. He tells us about the inner workings of the Illyrian camps and the villages and the kind of strained traditions that they have with the Illyrian females. Rhysand and Cassian share a conversation that opens them both wide up to see what's really bothering them deep down. And then they kind of fly off, and we get Cassian's POV for the first time. He takes us on a flight through the mountains by Ramiel and to the camp where he was born, telling us a story of how his mother, who was extremely mistreated, and then he drives us through the flight. Or, sorry, excuse me. I'm going to restart that sentence. I'm like, what is that? I know what it says now. Not read it
They're in
well.
real time, guys. You know that we give you what we say, what we write.
He's telling us the story of his mother, who is his driving force to fight for a better world. That's what I meant to say. We return to Feyre, who is walking down the streets of Valaris and comes across some boarded up buildings where one of the past tenants survived and moved, and the other did not survive the attack. And the building is up for sale. A shop owner from down the street named Rosinia, who is the same one, if you remember from the attack on Valaris, had that pipe in her hand, standing in front of her shop, defending the people who were hiding inside of it. And she sees Feyre and tells us all of this and makes Feyre feel a little bit more comfortable in that moment. It's kind of fun to
Mhm.
see the High Lady interacting with civilians, if you will.
Yeah, I also love that it was
Townspeople.
her, the lady with
Mm-hmm.
from the fight, for
Yeah, they gave
Valaris.
each
I
other
was
that
like,
little nod. They remember each other.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
So
nice.
As Feyre is walking through town, she decides to take us present shopping, and Mor joins her. Both of them are racking their minds about what to buy for their family. Mor tells Feyre
Relatable.
that, I right, of course. Mor tells Feyre that she, Mor, and Rhys need to visit the hewn city to essentially give them well wishes for the solstice, which I'm sure nobody really wants to do, but they have to. And
Yeah.
we return back to the townhouse where Reese and Feyre chat and share a thought for a thought, one of their more personal traditions. It's a callback to that first vulnerable moment on the balcony of the House of Wind all that time ago. It almost leads to an intimate moment, but that tension is broken up by Moore, reminding them that they need to get ready to leave, and Reese is the one who takes far too long to get ready.
It's like a little kid. Mom, Dad.
Yes. Well, a cold bath later, and we enter the hewn city. This time, though, we're in Moore's POV for the first time. We find Kier and Eris in a meeting, and this prompts Moore to reflect back on a memory of her being dumped at the Autumn Court. She is snapped back into reality, though, from that memory by Feyre. And Eris informs us that Tamlin needs to be dealt with. That's right. If you thought you were getting rid of him, joke's on
Yeah.
you. Now,
Shocker. He's not gone.
why does he need to be dealt with? Because they're worried about the Autumn Court and Baron trying to expand his territory into the human lands, and Tamlin's Spring Court is kind of the line of defense, if you will, draws the line in the sand, literally. So we go back to Bellaris, and we're in Rhysand's POV, where Azrael updates him about the extent and the spreading of the frustration some Illyrians have, and the talks that could become toxic for the Night Court should they let them run rampant. They speak of Rhysand's plan to visit the Spring Court and the dangers of the human queens as well. As we return back to Cassian's POV, we visit a rundown Illyrian village where he stops in a shop and meets an interesting new character named Emery. The female Emery, who has had her wings clipped, is running her family's shop after her father died in the war. Their exchange is perfect because no one in town wants to buy Emery's products and no one in town will take Cassian's money. The perfect pair.
Yeah.
So, what is Cassian doing there? He buys every piece of winter clothing possible and asks Emery to deliver it to those in need. Now, of course, he is our selfless warrior who truly loves his people and does not want to see them suffer, even though they don't really like him, apparently. We return back to Feyre's POV. And Feyre does what so many of us find challenging as adults. We actually kind of talked about it a little bit in our last episode. And she puts herself out there into a new social situation. And very understandably, she decides she's not quite ready for that.
We've all been there.
And it's really because this just isn't simply her going to meet up with people. It's her doing the thing that she loves the most that really channels her emotions. And she's doing this in front of people she's never even met. So she makes the choice to instead paint privately. And in doing so, she's finally able to release an image that has a hold on her ever since she looked into the Ouroboros. And we realized that she needed that release. Meanwhile, Rhys is planning a visit to the Spring Court that Feyre, understandably, does not want to take part in. Yep, sounds
Yeah.
fair.
I mean, if I were her, I wouldn't want to go back there.
No,
that's
absolutely
trauma
not.
to the max.
Rhysand tells us that the Spring Court is nothing like he's ever seen it before. There are no beautiful blooming flowers, just intertwining vines and thorns and fountains that are dried up, and hedges that are unkempt. A reflection of Tamlin's current state of mind. Lucian is apparently also there, but he's out hunting for food for him and Tamlin to eat since all the workers and the sentries have abandoned them completely. Lucian stays really out of pity for his old friend during this visit. And just when we're maybe about to pity Tamlin as well for the tomb that he's created for himself in his own home, he opens up his mouth and reminds us that he is, in fact, an asshole. In case you
Yeah,
forgot.
he does.
Um, I mean, it
Shocker.
would have been really easy to forgive him in these moments to be like, oh, yay, thank you for all you did. And then look at the
And
ugly words you said.
then opens his
Got it.
damn mouth
I
every
know.
single
I know.
time. Just think before we speak.
He calls the Illyrian warriors that saved his ass in the battle brutes. Clearly makes it clear that he doesn't care about protecting the humans and is overall doing nothing to better himself given all that he has left to heal with inside him. And then Rhysand reminds us that Tamlin's not really worth our pity because he's made his own bed to lay in. We return back to Valaris, and solstice shopping is in full swing. Feyre has her hands full, and Rhys realizes he needs to get his shit together and go shopping too. At the
Sounds like
last
a
minute,
true
apparently.
man. True man.
uh, he finds 3 beautiful jewels for Amryn. Very fitting, considering she
Mm.
basically sacrificed herself for the good of all, and fate, and humankind, feykind. And he still can't quite find the right gift for his mate. Meanwhile, back at the townhouse, Cassian and Feyre begin to decorate for solstice. This is one of those little moments that you're like, what?
I
How
was
cute.
obsessed with this. The decorating, the drinking, Azrael, every piece of this. I was like, I can see it and I want to be a fly on the wall for it.
Yeah,
This is
it's so
awesome.
fun. Well, this is where we're reminded that Feyre did not grow up with these types of customs or traditions because she is genuinely shocked at the fact that there is greenery, a tree, from the outside inside the house. Like, what the fuck did you bring the trees in here for?
And I can see Cassian just like dumping it on the ground. And Faye was like, what the fuck is this?
Well, the two of them start to decorate and are having a great time until Azriel tells them that their decorations look horrible. Everything is merry and bright, and we get such a fun little look into what life in Valaris could be for all of them if things remain calm and normal. Making jokes, teasing each other, sharing good bottles of wine, and just enjoying each other's company. Everything remains that way until Amryn comes and reminds everybody that Nesta is coming for Solstice, and Cassian suddenly becomes very uncomfortable and everything gets quiet, and clearly it's a difficult and sore subject.
Hmm.
Elaine and Feyre then chat about Nesta and her current struggles. While Feyre is understanding and shows grace towards Nesta, we see an edge from Elaine that is quite surprising. Then it's one awkward encounter followed by another as Elaine and Asriel aren't quite sure how to act around one another. They're like two middle schoolers that maybe have a crush on one another. It's like cute
Yes.
and awkward.
Yes, that's
Now,
perfect description.
yeah, eventually they all sit down for dinner together and we witness the awkwardness that is Amryn trying to eat real food and
Hmm.
the relatable humor of a good potty joke. Elaine, ever the one to ask the deep questions when the moment doesn't necessarily call for it, asks Amryn about her choice to become a female fae. Amryn tells us that she did in fact have a choice, and that prior to picking, she was neither female or male, she just was. And she found the female body to be more appealing, more symmetrical. And even though she still kind of wishes that she had a penis to pee with.
That correct me. I was literally giggling
She's
out
like, yeah, I need
loud.
better aim here.
Relatable. I will, it's a hill I will die on. Peeing outside as a woman, peeing in general as a woman, but if you have to pee outside ever, people, it's a
It's a
struggle.
bitch.
It really, really is. And then my husband wonders why I don't want to like go out in nature with him randomly. I need a bathroom.
Amen to that. Well, a little bit after this dinner, Feyre decides to go look for Nesta and finds that when she goes to her apartment, there are no wards around her home. Why aren't you protecting yourself? And well, she in fact isn't even there to begin with, and Feyre thinks she might know where she is, so she decides she's probably at one of the 10 bars in town. Hmm.
Hmm.
It's safe to say their conversation together is tense at best, and it results in Nesta pretty much reverting back to her old self, who expects things done for her with no effort in return. And Feyre bribes her to come to Solstice. For herself, for Elaine, for both, that's
For
questionable.
Cassian, for not Cassian. I was really starting to like Nesta, and then she just like digs herself back down into a hole. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, shoot.
Well, we cut to Rhysand and Morgan taking a much needed stroll and chat through the city. And they take in the rubble from the waterfront homes. They discuss the reality of Keir visiting Valaris, along with Mor's role in potentially helping other territories come to an agreement with Prythian. Perhaps also giving Mor a reason to be elsewhere when Keir comes to visit in the spring. We return to Feyre and Elaine doing their own last minute shopping, and the ever insightful Elaine makes an observation that I'm surprised others have yet to realize. Giving and receiving any type of luxury or something that's not a necessity is challenging for Feyre. However, while they're shopping, Feyre realizes a dark truth. Her husband came home, a gift of itself. And the Weaver, not to be confused with like the
That was
Weaver,
hard for my brain.
but
Initially, I
like
was like, Weaver.
the Fae who has a profession as a weaver. Okay,
A
make sure let's
Weaver, not
separate
the
those.
Weaver.
Yep.
A, not the.
Well, a weaver who owns a shop tells her of this weaving. It's not a painting. I don't know why I said that. It's a weaving, but it's so interesting how it's described that it makes me think of a painting.
Yeah, it's like
And
a tapestry.
yeah, a tapestry, and it uses a type of thread called void that takes in everything, reflects nothing. And it has a beautiful truth behind why she created it. Because I must create, or it was all for nothing. If I were to stop, then there would be no hope in the void. This inspires
Beautiful.
Feyre, absolutely. This inspires Feyre to finally find release through her own art. And then we see Ricinia again, who once again urges Feyre to buy the studio that she's secretly squatting in.
Yeah. It's like, you got the money, babe. Just buy it.
Speaking to Reese, Feyre vocalizes a dream that she once thought to herself a long while back to use her talents to help others heal. Yet there is one person she is still set on helping heal, Nesta. She goes to Amryn to get some insight and is surprised to learn that Amryn has been meeting with Nesta and considers her a friend. While this is painful for Feyre to hear, it's also understandable. Not only would Amryn's 15 years make her a pretty honest therapist, but she and Nesta already have quite a trusting bond from their power lessons together. It seems that everyone in our inner circle has some big adjustments to make, and simply enduring may not be enough. The end. Or the
So
middle of the book.
cute. Yeah. The literal, literal middle.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into some world building moments. These are just things that I noted. I was surprised at how much world building we got in these 15 chapters of this little book.
Right.
I was like, oh, wait, there's so much being dropped here. How fun. So the night court celebrates solstice with warmth, company, food, presents. It sounds like my version of Christmas. I love it.
Mm.
And the winter court has an even bigger celebration, which absolutely makes sense. And it lasts for a whole week. It's as grand as you can think of. And I was like, it's giving Narnia.
I agree. I also was like, only a week in the winter court? You could have told me a month and I wouldn't have batted an eye.
Well, maybe capitalism isn't quite a thing there.
I mean, like celebration.
I know.
Giving
I
is
think of like
stressful.
here feels like, Christmas is like
Yes.
Halloween on. So,
Yeah.
you know. Um, then Illyrians. Okay, we did learn a little bit more about the results of the war. The Illyrians took the brunt of the deaths in that war. And I mean, there were like a lot of deaths. So
Mm,
I think that says something sad.
yeah.
There is dissension looming from the Illyrians, who believe that Rhys and Cassian purposefully chose them to be the ones to die. And it's because of Rhys and Cassian's childhood trauma and resentment towards the Illyrians. Obviously, we know that's not true, but that's the inner feeling from some people, which is not good. Speaking
Yeah.
of Illyrians and that territory, Ramiel, the mountain, we get a lot more about this from Cassian. The heart of the sacred mountain. What only once a year during the blood rite are Illyrians allowed on the mountain and on the top of it, and it feels different from others, more alive somehow. Beautiful, lonely, eternal, and ageless. And three stars appear once a year for a brief moment above it. And that is when the blood rite occurs. Now, speaking of the blood rite, all novices compete with no outside tools or major help, and they have their
Mm.
wings bound, and no magic either if they possess it. Now, the goal is to make it to the summit of the mountain by the end of a week and touch this obsidian onyx stone. And by the way, don't be killed by the other Illyrians who have old scores and debts to settle, or the monsters that lurk around it. And as one, we learn that Cassian, Azrael, and Rhysand touched that obsidian stone peak at the end of their blood rite. And it was very rare for anyone to make it to the summit. In fact, in 5 centuries, only a dozen more have made it.
Which
So,
is interesting.
yeah, yeah. Okay, Fae menstrual cycles. We get a little bit about
Uh,
this, which is so interesting. Okay, apparently,
yeah.
they only get them twice a year, not monthly, but it leaves your whole body feeling the pain and thrashing for severe pain for like a straight week. So, like, quick question for
Wow.
you: would you rather get mild monthly cycles or torture for a whole week twice a year?
At this point in my life, I can handle the monthly cycle. At a different point in my life, I would have chosen just to have the hell twice a year because I had the hell once a month. So,
Yeah, yeah. Oddly
yeah,
enough, I think I would choose it once a month too.
yeah, yeah. At this point, I've learned to deal with it, but I'm like, that sounds like a royal bitch, though, too, to go from like normal, right? And Feyre said, like, I had a rough time with my
Hmm.
cycle, even as a human, and now it's like amplified, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
You know what it also makes me think of is the fact that obviously our cycles revolve around our anatomy and our ability to become pregnant. And we know that it's difficult for Fae to become pregnant. So if they only
Hmm.
have 2 cycles, is there only really 2 windows a year that they can get pregnant?
Right. That's
And
what
is
I
that
thought
why
about
it's so
too.
challenging because of the timing and um the fact that it only occurs every now and then?
Right. Well, and what
So
your ovulation cycle's like a week to 10 days. So you then just have what? Maybe
maybe
20
it's like,
days
yeah, maybe it's like two
in a
months or
year.
something that they have
Yeah.
that they can. I don't know. I found that very interesting. Okay, human queens. They're still there, huddled in their
Can't
joint
forget.
castle. Okay. Um, the wall being gone could mean that other Fey territories, especially on the continent, make a play for that land. We obviously don't want that to happen. Hence why Rhysand is trying to get more to help bring those territories to an understanding, if you will.
And
And
isn't, help
then,
me remember, sorry,
mhm,
because I didn't write this down anywhere. There's not a queen for the land mass that Feyre's from. They don't have a queen, but
no.
Jurian is currently kind of
He's like
occupying the
acting,
space,
kind of acting as a king, if you will, but not
like a de facto leader after the war.
a leader. I think is a better word than king for what he is
Yeah,
doing right now. But yes, he's the person that the people are turning to there.
just made
So
me go, wonder what's going to happen with that in Jurian.
yeah, I mean, perhaps he could give a little Lord of the Rings vibes of, we've got it's been so long since I've seen those movies. You're gonna have to ask your husband, but I cannot remember his name for the life of me right now.
Aragorn?
Um, yeah, thank you. I'm like, it's
Thank you,
somewhere up in
Josh.
my
I know
head.
that because of him.
Um, he kind of gives
Aragorn,
me those vibes of like, I do the right thing, I fight for the humans, and then he suddenly becomes the crowned king,
the king. Yeah.
you know? So I don't know, it could be that. All right, so continuing on, Vasa, still in Prythian. Apparently, she found a lot of loopholes to work through that she can still remain there for a little bit longer. And back to the Illyrians for a second. Clipping wings is done by slicing the main center tendon. So that's what we see on Emery. And
Mm.
then Illyrian customs mandate that any possessions be passed down to the next male relative. That sounds like very old school human. We can understand that. Emery made like official declaration, a choice. She said, "No, I'm going to run my shop. It's mine. You're not taking it from me." That custom is why she's shunned, essentially. So,
Which is so
yeah,
unfortunate.
those are my world building moments. What did you have?
The only other thing that I wanted to throw in there is that, and maybe this had been mentioned before, but I like there's so much going on. Nobody really knows where the Shadow Singer powers come from. Rhysand says that in one of
Uh-huh.
his POVs that like we don't really know why Asriel is the way that he is, where that comes from, how you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was interesting. So
Yeah,
that's about the only other additional world building thing that I felt like I
cool.
wanted to add.
Awesome. Well, should we dive into Miss Feyre?
Ah, always.
Well, I love that even Feyre has to deal with organizing her own house and procrastinating about it, just like me.
Right. Ugh.
I know. And, she occupies her time by helping others, which is very relatable, very understandable for her. But it's not just to avoid her own trauma and thoughts, but also because that's like all she's known her entire life is to serve
Mm-hmm.
others, which is very understandable for her. And honestly, it kind of, as if we don't already love Favorite, but it just reinforces the goodness within her. As a reader, you'd be like, oh, yes, this would be who you are. I love that.
Mm.
Also, her birthday's coming up. Not like for us, but in the book. So,
In the not real world.
in the Fae world, reminder that she's going to be 21. I'm sure that does not have the same
Yes.
connotation as it does for us, but she's going to be 21.
Well, and when you're a immortal fae, right? I does it matter? But I we are reminded at the beginning of this, and I harp on it like every time we get a reminder, but it's good for my brain. It has
Mm,
only been 2 years. It feels
yeah.
like a lifetime has passed since she killed Andres in the woods. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
only been about 2 years, not even a full 2 years. It's
Mm-hmm.
only been a year since Feyre left the spring for good. It's not even been a year of the mating bond. And my brain's
Mm-hmm.
like, my God, so much has happened.
Yeah.
It's you think like war takes so long and la di da di da, but no, all of this, our first 3 books have only taken place within the time span of like a year and a half to 2 years, which is just kind of mind blowing to then be reminded that she's only going to turn 21 during this,
Yeah.
winter solstice.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild. 21 and what, like 501 or something like that?
Right.
Segue, there's this Netflix show called Age of Attraction,
Is
and I
that the
don't know
one where
if
it's
you've
like the
seen it.
60-year-old? And I haven't seen it. I've just seen clips on social media and I'm like, ah,
Well,
that's interesting.
I started it while doing my nails, so I'm like 2 or 3 episodes in, and I'm like simultaneously excited for some of them and also getting the ick. And then I
Oh,
remember I'm like, these age differences make me feel funky if it's not inside of a book.
yeah. Well, even in this book, you've got Rhysand who's going like, "Oh my gosh, I hope that, because he realizes too, she's only going to be 21." And there's, a lot of life that he's lived that she hasn't, and that's kind of some of his, insecurity a little bit of like, "Oh, has she lived the life she's wanted to live? I did." So yeah, it's a age difference. It's not a bad thing, but it's definitely, you know, in the real world very different than in our books.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't have like a 460 some gap,
Well, and at
but
that point when you're immortal and you can basically live forever, does it
what
matter?
is
As long
age?
as you're both
Yeah.
consenting adults, does it matter?
Uh, well, Feyre, she did make some interesting statements throughout this book and observations. And one observation she makes is about Reese being too busy to eat. And Feyre's like, no one is too busy to eat. And I was like, dare I say, I think you're wrong. I have had those moments, Feyre.
Yeah, I think we all
But
have where you're like,
remember,
"Oh, I
Feyre's
haven't
like,
eaten."
yeah, Feyre's like, well, I used to literally feel like I was going to starve every day. So yeah, I'll never forget to eat again.
Mm-hmm.
But something we take for granted, I think. But as she said that, I was like, oh no, I've definitely done that. And
It's
not in like
10
a
o'clock at night.
braggy way, just like
Yeah.
a, oh yeah, well, it does happen. It's
Yeah.
understandable for Reese, who's experienced every luxury in life since he was born,
Mm,
you know.
mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to Feyre not wanting to go to the spring court, I said, good for you, Feyre. Know your limits. Have boundaries in place for your toxic ex. We should all learn
Amen,
from
baby.
this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Smart choice. Smart choice.
Yep. Yep. Now, you know, Rhysand, I do think has a point, thinking that Feyre, would be better at decorating given that she's an artist. I agreed. I thought it was kind of hilarious to me that her and Cassian continuously get made fun of by everyone who walks through the door for their poor decorating.
It then
Um,
feeds into the thought that like Feyre's actually a terrible artist. That her
it does a
painting
little
is
bit.
just atrocious.
I have sent like I do believe she's actually a great painter.
I agree. I
I don't
do.
think Racinia would be like, "Yeah, babes, let's open a studio." If she
She'd
walked
be
in and
like,
she's like, "What's
"Ooh,
that?"
that's pretty." Was that left over? Did that get destroyed in the battle?
Ooh.
Feyre's like, "No, I just painted that."
Hey, just because you're good at one art form doesn't mean you're good at them all.
Oh, for real. I feel like I could not super prettily, but like I could decorate a tree. I can't paint. I can
Oh
edit a
yeah,
video. I can't write music. We all
yeah,
have our
yeah, yeah.
talents.
I
But
painted some really cute lemons on my nails. Don't give me a canvas. I won't know what to do.
and I couldn't do either one of those things. If I tried to put a lemon on my nail, you'd be like, "Is that a minion?" And I'd say, "Yes, sure." Whatever you think it is. It's up to
So funny.
interpretation.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh shoot. I broke healing. Whoa, I broke Feyre into multiple parts. The first one is about healing. I noticed that at the beginning of this book, she doesn't outright say it, but she alludes to the fact that she no longer dreads winter, which I think is again growth of not having to provide for her family, not having to wonder when will our next meal come. She can kind of enjoy when the snow falls. both her and Reese share the trauma of losing each other now and having that bond ripped away. So we see some more PTSD, with Reese and her father and all the soldiers that she kind of feels the weight of on her shoulders. But she's not falling apart. She's not
Mhm.
silently throwing up in the bathroom. She's also growing through that. She feels that pain, but she's holding herself together better than
Mhm.
she would have, just a year ago or a year and a half ago. She holds court. So again, I find this as healing. She's holding court and listening to her subjects, which is something that a year ago, a year and a half ago, she was dreading the
Mhm.
idea of having to do something like that, of having to interact with people in a way that wasn't just rebuilding. So again,
Yeah.
some growth, some healing for her.
I think it
And
helps that
then,
that in the night court it's not tied to the tithe.
yeah,
Just like
it just
how can I be
happens.
helpful, not give
Yeah,
me your stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was this moment where she contemplates using her Daimati power to ease the pain of, I wrote the weaver in the shop. That's
Yes.
hard for my brain. But she contemplates using her Daimati power to kind of ease the weaver's pain, who spun the void and the hope together, who lost her husband. And I think that's a mirror to Feyre, wishing maybe that someone could wipe a little bit of the pain that she feels away.
Mm.
It's important to feel your emotions, but I imagine her looking at that weaver, at that shop owner, and wishing too that somebody could help ease her pain a little bit in the way that she wishes she could do for her. So
Yeah.
that's healing Feyre. I also broke it into High Lady Feyre. I talked about her holding court, but her also meeting the fairy Racinia out in the streets and chatting there and chatting with people in the shops and the vendors and everything. I love seeing Feyre interact with fairies that aren't staff. She interacts with high fae often enough, but she's interacting with the quote unquote lesser fae outside of their home, which I think is really nice to see. And then when Racinia offers Feyre that moment to paint, and it's a beautiful moment, not just for Feyre's healing, but I think also a connection between the world that they're trying to create, kind of without the class separation, because that's Feyre, the high freaking lady of the night court, going to a quote unquote lesser Fae's home to
Mm.
paint. That's breaking that barrier in one way or another that her and Rhysand and Tarquin and others are dreaming of, which I thought was
Right.
really beautiful. And then she paints again. She does that. It may not be with Racinia, but she kind of breaks that wall down a little bit, which is more on the healing side. And the first thing she paints is herself, which I think again was super powerful for
Mm.
Feyre, kind of stepping forward. Um, and then I'm going to mention it one more time, but her washing her own dishes and then just setting them on a wooden rack by the sink. That's one of the first things we get in this book. And it makes me giggle because, again, it's so normal and it's
Mm.
so normal but foreign to watch Feyre do this compared to what we've gotten for her from her for the last 3 books, the last 2 years of war and scheming and training and, all of this up and down to now just have her washing dishes like I
Mhm.
do every day, like you do every day, was just such a different view of our High Lady. And I
Yeah.
really appreciated getting that.
And you have to remember that she doesn't have to do that. Like
Right.
that
She chooses to.
you're not going to see Tamlin. Well, maybe you would now, but you're not going to see Tamlin in the past washing his own dishes. Dare I say, you might not even see Reese washing his own dishes,
Right.
because they that is not the life that they've been raised in. There are people with those tasks and meant to have those tasks to have a living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, God, that sounded awful, but I don't mean like
I
there are
know
people
it's
who have
hard.
to wash the dishes. But in this world, if
Yes.
those roles aren't there, those fae don't have a job, don't
A
have
job.
income,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, have a way to feed their families. So, if you take away all those tasks, you take away those opportunities and those jobs. That's what I meant to say. The first way I said
Yes.
it sounded a little
It's
yucky.
it's hard. It's hard to
I was
like
like,
differentiate, right? Like
yeah.
it's why I always say quote unquote lesser phase. Like
Yes,
that's
yes, yes.
we're referring to the world that we're
Yeah.
in, not the world that we are
Yeah.
in.
Now, and I think of Feyre in this setting, I'm like, I don't think she has to either. I think that's a choice she makes to stay connected to her humanity,
Hmm.
which I actually think makes the action of washing the dishes a beautiful thing, versus something that must be done.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love it.
It's a choice. She chooses to do it. She gets to do
Hmm.
it. You know, that
Yeah,
thought process of like, I get to do this thing.
right. So, Rhysand, speaking of choices, our choice master, if you will, um, I I really did enjoy getting more of his POV, those little insights into him in the High Lord that we all fell in love with. And he says, I held that gaze, and despite my crown, my power, I tried not to fall back into the trembling child I was 5 centuries ago under his stare. He's talking about when he's looking in the eyes of the Illyrian camp leader Devlin.
Hmm.
And we have this built up image of Rhys being the most powerful High Lord ever. I mean, he can mist people with a finger point, and yet he looks in the eyes of someone who, as a child, he was underneath, reprimanded by, and he feels like, "Huh, I want to revert back." How understandable and relatable is that feeling? Absolutely 100% for me.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's funny too. You know, we know that Reese is self-deprecating, but now getting a little bit more of that like insecurity. Again, I think it makes it more relatable to Reese. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
not this all powerful, he is, but he's also normal. Like there's just so much
Yeah.
normalcy in this book. And I do appreciate that because I think that's relatable. You know, I think I mentioned like episodes and episodes and episodes ago that I saw one of my high school teachers, and like I
Mm.
can't call her by her first name because it's a respect thing, right? Like I looked up to her as this role model, this like mothering figure, and now to have to like not
Yeah.
see her in that, you know, it's very similar. um I understand it, and it's relatable. It's nice to feel like you can relate to the
Mm-hmm.
most powerful High Lord in all of history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I love that for her, or for him. Who are we talking
For
about?
us.
Rhysand. Sorry. I'm like, whom? Okay. Then we go into, this next line. I could rip into their minds and make them agree. But there are some lines that I could not, would not cross. This continue moral struggle of how to use his power. And he's talking about the Illyrians, and like, you have to listen to me. You have to do what I'm saying. You have to let the women train, and let the
Yeah.
men help in the house. And but he knows that that's not actually going to result in what he wants. And we see this same kind of pull and push with Feyre and her powers, like you just mentioned. I could go into her mind. I could help ease that pain.
Hmm.
And both of them have this power that, like, when is it appropriate to use?
Right. Okay, this is going to sound terrible. I was going to say, what's the point of it? Like, I'm not saying do these things, but then I'm also like, so what's the purpose? Why were you given this gift?
It feels like it's
What do
for
you do with
emergency
it?
purposes only.
Yeah.
Does
Only
the
do what
fate of
Reese
all
did under
fey
the
kind,
mountain.
yeah, does the
Yeah.
fate of
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
fey
Yeah.
kind lie in my hands? Great
Here
time
you
for
go.
this.
Good thing I'm a Damati.
Oh.
That's funny.
Now we get through all of these like harder moments, and then finally Rhysand and Feyre get a little moment together, and I was like, wait a minute, not Rhysand and Feyre doing the nasty in the sky.
I
Um,
know that, and he
welcome to
just
the
drops
Mile
that
High
nugget.
Club.
I couldn't help but think. I was like, so you're flying, you're having sex in the sky. Feyre's flying, so she's doing all of her stuff. Like you're cloaking yourself so people can't see because otherwise, wow, that's a show. That's like a lot of skill in multitasking. Holy shit. That's like a lot
There
of work.
it's a lot of skill that I guess you could only get from 500 years of experience, because might I remind us all that despite Feyre's powers, she is yet to figure out how to multitask her powers. She's like, well, I'm not going to fly there because
Because I can't
then
keep
I'd have to
myself
figure out how
warm.
to keep myself warm and simultaneously keep the wind out of my face. And I can't do those things yet. I was like, you can't?
But also, isn't that such a woman thing? Like, she's thinking through meticulously. And then there's just horny Reese who's like, we're flying in the sky. I'm feeling it. It doesn't
Let's
matter. I'm going
go.
to figure it out.
And I'm gonna figure out how to pull your pants down at the same time too.
That I'm just
It's a
trying to
lot.
envision that as well, because usually we get some more in-depth descriptions of their sexual encounters. This one was pretty brief, and I'm like, the
SJM's like, I want to give
mechanics of
this to
it.
you, but like, don't ask too many questions.
She's like, I can't. There's a lot of mechanics. Here's it. I'm dropping it in. Envision it how you like.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Oh, well, speaking of, his power and his unsureness of what to do with it besides help take pants down,
Mm.
he has this like constant strain that he talks about. It's this constant need to be exuding, otherwise he will pent up and explode. And I note that, he says he feels like he needs to find a way to fix, just period, fix what? Like
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I also think about his power needing to continuously be exuded. He wants to be a fixer. Does he ever take time to actually just like stop and breathe? It doesn't feel like it.
No, and he says that like he just wants a week of uninterrupted time with Feyre. He says for sex, but also I could imagine just to like be, because
Hmm.
he doesn't. I mean, and he hasn't, at least for the last 52 years. He has
Yeah.
not had any moments of peace. And it's like, again, Reese, you don't have to give everything. You don't have to fix everything. Like we know he will, and we love him for it, but when we get to the heroine's journey later, I'm going to hammer on this a little bit more. But if we can't care for ourselves, how do we care for others?
Yeah. Well, and I think, he has those moments where he has to remind himself. He's like, it was hard sometimes to remember that she picked me. It's not like my
Mm-hmm.
parents who were shoved together, right? The idea of his parents having to be together in a way because of that mating bond versus Feyre being like, no, here's my soup bowl.
I
I
chose
pick
it.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they've already been through so much. Okay.
Mm.
And he's like, how no one can be this happy and not pay for it. But
I think
I
you
think you
paid.
have. Yeah, you've already been
Is it
through a
Cassian
lot.
who says that? Like you
Yeah,
paid. It's your debt is there
exactly.
was no debt. There wasn't even a debt to be paid because you paid it instantly. Like
Yeah. And I'm sure that like for Resand, his feelings around all of his life and like what's happened to him, right? He's like, "Oh, I can't be this happy." Well, you like literally died.
mm,
And so I feel like that's the ultimate sacrifice. But then I also think about, his death, and it reminds me of Tamlin and Resand and their little, I don't know, history, I guess.
mm,
They went from being enemies. No, they went from being friends. They went from being friends
like
to
good
enemies.
friends, I think.
Yeah, to
Happy,
allies.
happy friends. Yeah.
Yeah, and then to being saved by his magic to just
Mm,
like this indifference.
yeah.
And that's so much to have inside your body too, to be like, my existence is because of my happiness is somehow because of the person I loathe the most. There's supposed to be
Mm,
so much going on in his mind.
yeah. And I like that we get that little like look into it, especially to it's not just Tamlin that Reese kind of struggles with. I mean, of course, that's like its own whole, there's so much history to that. But then he also makes this comment, I cannot forgive anyone who made you suffer. And he's talking to Feyre about Nesta and Lucian, who he's okay with, but he's got a lot of frustration with Nesta too. That I
Mm-hmm.
kind of felt like I appreciated that we got his POV because in Aka War, we didn't feel that. Like we did at the beginning, that he's frustrated with Nesta, and then it almost kind of like diminishes because we're focused on other things. And now
Mm.
that's right back. Like he does not forgive easily or lightly, and Nesta's not making it easy for him to, whereas Lucian maybe kind of is. So he's got,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of these like weird feelings that he's trying to work through, people that are connected literally to his wife, his sister, but then also these people that like he says with Tamlin, I could just kill you, but I
Mm.
want peace. So I'm going to get peace and then I'll maybe kill you after. And he's like, for now, I'll let my words do the job that my hands can't.
Yeah. I mean, he's got some excellent self control after
Oh,
all these centuries. Like, I'm not sure I would have been able to stop myself from attacking Tamlin when he starts to think about the beheadings of his mother and sister and the role that Tamlin played in that. Ooh, I
I
mean,
know. And Tamlin like pushes his buttons, which as he always
yes,
does.
I know. And Feyre reminds him, like, you're the bigger male most days. You're entitled to a slip up. And she's referring to, Rhysand's like, I shouldn't have dug into him like that. He's already so downtrodden. But, I mean, like, I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad. I agree with more. It sounds like it was pretty tame. Um,
I
you know?
yeah, I agree. I felt like it could have been more. It could have been bigger. It
Yeah.
could more could have been
But
said.
but
Yeah.
he regrets it a little bit, and I suppose it's a good reminder that just because you make a mistake, even if it's in your own eyes, it doesn't make you a bad person. Truthfully, none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
Emotion takes over. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But one place that I was like, let's let that emotion take over is when he was looking at Feyre and he notes her doing something. I don't even remember
I
what
think
she
she
was
sticks her
doing.
tongue out at him. She just
Oh
does like
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah. That's right. She sticks
yeah.
her tongue, and he's like, "Save that tongue for later. I got ideas."
You
He's
know,
always got a one-liner
he
ready to
does.
go.
And I love that they can communicate that between their minds. You know, that's fun. It's funny between the two of them, right? Whereas my loving and incredible husband just says it out loud. I'm like, can you not?
Yeah, no, my husband definitely would just say it out loud, but he also is really good communicator with his eyebrows, you know?
Oh, yeah. So
He does a little.
Josh's whole face, like he starts giggling. That man, I love him. He can't keep the secret to himself. I can't tell him. Like if I'm planning something, I planned a surprise party once, and this motherfucker, we go out to breakfast before the surprise party with the person, and he's like giggling and he being so weird. And I said, "Can you leave? I have kept this secret for months. Get
That's so
out."
funny because it reminds me when we were at Miss America when you were competing and he was like, "You want to see the ring?" I mean, he is. I'm like, when are you proposing? He's like, I don't know, sometime soon. You want to see the ring? He's
Six
just
months
like so
later,
excited to like show everyone. I was
I
like, oh,
love him. He can't
you
keep
do
a
not want to
secret.
keep this inside, do you?
And he can't. And that's the same thing with like Reese and Feyre. I love that they can communicate those moments just between each other. It's
Yeah.
fun, right? Sometimes when it's said out loud, you're like, save that for in private. Send it to me as a text message. Laugh about it later.
Too cute. Too cute.
Oh man. Let's see. I wanted to throw in just a couple little tidbits about Reese. Every solstice, he donates to charities to support the elderly and then young mothers who want to start businesses. Again, it's so normal. It's so everyday, but also Reese caring about the elderly and the young mothers wanting to start businesses thing. I thought was so
Hmm.
beautiful, but also so interesting to think about Valaris being and Prythian being so similar to the human world of like there being young mothers, there
Hmm.
being, being people who need the support and the help. We think about our
Yep.
high
Yep.
lords so often and not the rest of Prythian. So it was kind of an
I
insight into
yeah,
that.
absolutely. And I think the you say that and it reminds me of other things that have been mentioned in these chapters, which we'll come back to. But for example, the idea of slums or
Mm-hmm.
the less desirable places to live in Valaris, and it makes me go like, wait, why do these places even exist? Isn't this supposed to be
Yeah.
the perfect ideal place? But perhaps the place and its offerings are ideal, but that doesn't take away the choice that everyone has to live up to that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can still have Fae who make poor choices,
Right.
even if
Exactly.
they're even if they have all of the help in the world, you can't take away the choice someone makes. And that's kind of what this reminds me of too. Is like, yeah, maybe there are young mothers because there are shitty men or males.
Right. Right.
Just because Valaris is perfect doesn't make every male perfect.
Exactly. A place can be perfect. It doesn't mean people are. And that's the beauty of choice, right? We get to choose and they get to choose. So, yeah, it's funny thinking we get to think more about the
Mm-hmm.
people and the place in this book, which I really
Yeah.
appreciate. I really like that I can kind of hone in on some of that where you can't when you're, thinking of war and
Yeah.
cauldrons and kings killing people.
Absolutely.
Rhysand being sweet during Feyre's period is not shocking. Um, but something I thought that was really lovely to read, and of course this was written by a woman, but the words from him of blood is blood. It doesn't matter. Just him caring for her again is
Mm-hmm.
another. It, I, I'm not gonna compare, but I'm gonna compare. Tamlin couldn't even be there for her when she's throwing up.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I just imagine like what would that have been like going through this had she been anywhere else, but of course then he's her mate, but him being there for her and just being like it's fine. I'm here for you. And I love that she's like stop being a mother hen and he's like well I'm going to care for you anyway. And he
Very
tells her
true.
he says I love you more than life, more than my territory, more than my crown, which we know he gave it all up. He died to push his power through her to help her so that she could keep living, so that Prythian could
Mm.
go on. He loves her more than any of those things, but just hearing him say it, I thought was really beautiful. Um, yeah, I thought that was really pretty. I don't know if this is a hard transition, but this is where he is in the notes. And there's just a few things I was going to throw in here about Lucian. We
Mm.
touched on the fact that he's living in Valaris. He's got his own apartment. But we don't really know what's going on between him and Tamlin. We mentioned that he comes back in the beginning of the book to Valaris with a black eye and a beat up lip. So there was something, after he goes to the spring court, but he's still choosing to spend solstice with Tamlin and he's hunting for him. He's pitying his friend.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting that both Asriel and Reese are kind of referring to him as their human emissary. So it's kind of interesting to see Lucian integrate more into the night court
Mm.
into Valaris having a home there and fulfilling this role that the inner
Yeah.
circle needs. I'm curious to see how
Clearly,
that
Nesta
continues
gave
to
her
kind of
job up.
blossom. Right, which is actually why it's a perfect segue then to go into Nesta, who um I don't really know how to start. She's got major PTSD, which we know. Being lost in the sauce though lately is not really helping. She's
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting this, I guess,
I
from
know.
this
She's
book.
literally closed herself off to everyone. I mean, she doesn't even speak to Cassian. We went from laying your body over him to
I
die with
know.
him to not speaking to him at all.
I know. I that was like, whoa. You thought you were together in those final moments, and now we don't even speak. You don't interact with anybody but
Mm,
Feyre, and then we come to learn Amryn apparently. But I'm like, and oh
yeah.
man, I don't know if you have this in here. I'm sorry, I'm gonna bring it up now. But there at the end of these chapters, when Feyre and Nesta have their interaction in the tavern, and Nesta just goes, "My rent is due."
Mm,
Oh,
hmm.
you bitch!
Yeah, that's what I meant by reverting back to her old self.
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
chop the wood. Go get us food. Pay my
Hmm.
rent. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
I think that's why
that's a
so many people
choice.
dislike her so severely. And that
Ah,
is understandable. Like, ugh,
yeah.
it's not a
I'm
good look.
I want to know what's to come, right? We gave Feyre the grace to like pick herself back up. So I think we should give Nesta the grace to pick herself back up.
Hmm.
But and of course this is Nest or Feyre's POV, but I'm like, that's just like such a rough way to I don't know, start this book. So yeah.
Absolutely. Um, so okay. We mentioned that clearly Lucian, now the human emissary, Nesta doesn't have that job anymore, but we learned that Rhysand's offered her several jobs. And she
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't want any of them. She doesn't want anything to do with the inner circle. And then Rhys makes a statement that I'm like, what? He says, Nesta is an Illyrian at heart.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that means?
Cold?
Are they all,
Uh,
though? Look at Emery.
I know, I know. I found that to be such an interesting comment.
What does that
You've
mean?
got Feyre with a human heart, and now you've got Nesta with an Illyrian heart. Like, I also was like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Get Resand, POV time. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Give us some clarity there.
Like, I mean, brutal.
Right.
I mean, when I go to think of the way that Illyrians have been described, and we get it from Rhysand's POV mostly, and the little off comments that Azriel will make, it doesn't seem like a positive thing. But then you listen to Cassian and the way he loves his people and the way he wants to fight for
Mm-hmm.
them to have a better way of life, and you meet more Illyrians that are not the Devlins of the
Right.
world, and it makes you go, okay, there must be more to it. I mean, Reese's mom was Illyrian,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't have an answer to this question. However, I hope that I can get a little bit better understanding as we go forward, right? And
Agreed.
speaking of Nesta's, state of mind and insight right now, looking within her, Amryn actually is the one who gives us a little bit better perspective. And she says she'll be surprised if she shows up not drunk and doesn't rip everyone apart, showing that Nesta's clearly not dealing with her trauma in a healthy way. And quite frankly, she probably doesn't know how to.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she really does not. Like, does she even have a release? She likes to read, but
She likes to read, she likes to drink, and she likes music. Because
and
she says she's like,
apparently
I'm at the bar for the
maybe
music.
they say that she's,
Oh,
living it up with some randos too,
yeah, yeah, and lots of sex.
which okay, now this doesn't
STDs,
matter.
baby.
I got to thinking about this though. Do you think they have STDs in Valaris in
Hey,
Prythian?
girl.
I mean,
They got
probably,
periods. Why not?
right? Why not have the rest? So Feyre was not a virgin.
Nope.
But you can do you think Nesta is now just sleeping around to feel so like the I'm sorry, but I had that thought. I was like, whoa, did she just straight up lose her virginity in this moment?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know that it
we
matters,
very
but
clearly know that Elaine is and has
yes.
not experienced that, but I don't know about Nesta.
I just was like, I for some reason that came to mind of like, whoa, is that the way that you're stepping into this portion of your
Mm,
life? You know,
yeah.
is that how you're stepping into your sexuality? Because that also feels like, wow, what a harsh entrance
Yeah.
into
Yeah, I
what can
know.
be such a beautiful piece of life.
I'm interested too. I don't know the answer there, but I guess I would hope not, you know.
Right. I would hope that it wasn't the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, and Nesta, we've gotten so many references to her being a queen. Yeah, at
Mm.
one point I was like, let's start counting them. But here we go.
Take shots.
Another one. Feyre looks at her and references her as a painting as she's sitting in the bar. A queen without a throne. We get another one.
She's like, what does that mean? Where I need to know her place. Like where does she end up? You
Yeah,
know?
very interesting. Now, Nesta's comments back. I actually think this comment, why do you I have to be a part of your merry little band? I think it shows some deeper feelings, like resentment towards the happiness that Feyre found. Um, Feeling like she
Yeah.
doesn't actually belong with them because she doesn't feel like her or she doesn't have the same kind of exuding joy that they all have.
But like, girl, you could be happy too.
Yeah.
Again, we make choices, and I know that her life has been very different. I feel like she is the one holding herself back. And so I hope she finds those coping mechanisms so that she can, in whatever way, you know, live her happy life, find her place in the world, wherever it is.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not here in the night court, if it's not with the inner circle, whatever. But I'm like, you're right now, especially Nesta, you're digging your hole deeper,
Yeah. Yeah,
which is
for sure.
unfortunate.
Well, she clearly does have at least one outlet besides drinking and sex, which is reading. Very understandable.
I
Very
love this.
understandable.
It's I think it's Cassian's POV. Yeah.
Mm.
Cassian's POV where when he's talking to Emery and he's kind of like getting these sort of mirroring between Emery and Nesta and some of the like looks that they have. And then he thinks to himself, you know, Nesta has these looks, but she also has others, such as the look of, I don't want Cassian to know I'm reading smut. And that just made me giggle so much, especially, you know, we have joked about like when you're reading and you're reading in public or something and you're like, oh my God, or you're listening to an audiobook and you're like, can anybody tell what I'm listening to?
Yeah. Okay. So again, segue, sidebar. Have you seen those TikToks of the people who are testing what it sounds like to scream inside their cars?
No, I
Okay.
haven't.
There's this, you should do it to Josh. There's
Okay.
this thing where they want to test. It's like a joke that girlfriends are playing on their boyfriends,
Oh, where they
and
pretend to scream?
yes, they go into the car. They're
Okay.
like, let's see how
Yeah.
soundproof our vehicle is. I'm going to scream inside, but they don't actually scream. And then the guy's like, well, I didn't hear anything. She's like, okay, you try it. And then he goes in and like screams really high pitched and loud, and they have it
Yeah.
all on video. Okay. Um, Anyways, that's my segue to being like, oh, you can hear loud things coming from my car. Let me turn my audiobook volume down when I come to the red lights.
When I pull up to a stop line or stoplight, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me
That's
turn that
hilarious.
volume down. Well, speaking of Cassian, let's dive into his POV, which was so much fun to be in. Fun, you know what? Fun might not be the right word for that, but I enjoyed it. I
It
enjoyed
was
being in it. It was kind of dark, though.
enlightening.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
but good to see into his brain.
Yes. So, he wants to get into it with Devlin over the girls not being allowed to train and being forced to prep for solstice with the wives and forced to do all this. And he has this retort back where he says, the boys need a good solstice too. Or no, Devlin says the boys need a good solstice too. Let's give them one. To which Cassian remarks, they have two hands. They can help cook and clean too. I was like, Cassian, you're like a little before your time, babe.
Yeah, just a little. I give it another
A little ahead
500
of your
years.
time, I mean. Yes. Um,
I think it's
but
clear though too, like how much this time means to him
mhm.
because we get this little snapshot. I think it's from Reese's POV about Cassian crying during their first solstice together with Reese and his mom, and the first time he'd ever been given a gift. And I went, "Oh, you sweet baby."
Hmm.
Oh, like just it's another layer to why he cares so much in these moments.
Yeah, yeah. He does. He cares deeply for all of those that he loves in his life. And quite frankly, Nesta is clearly one of those people. This is not an assumption we're making anymore. I mean, look at that battle with the King of Highburn, and he says, if I
Mm.
have one regret, it's that I didn't get more time with you, Nesta. And then we fast forward to this, and they're talking about, people coming to Winter Solstice, and he goes, is he doesn't even have to finish the sentence. They know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He's wondering if Nesta's going to be there. Like, is she coming? Or,
Yeah.
and I feel for him because he has fallen for someone who is so deeply hurt. And I just wonder if
Mm-hmm.
his patience will be able to hold on.
Yeah. Yeah. How much time do you give someone? And he wants to give
Mm-hmm.
her his time or give her time, but there's this quote from him too when he and Reese are talking, and Cassian says, I get jealous sometimes. It's the legends, the lies they spin us when we're children about the glory and wonder of the mating bond. I thought it was all bullshit. Then you two came along. And he tells him,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not upset that you're happy, but you can tell he wants it. He wants that. And he I am assuming, and maybe this is too big of an assumption, but he wants that with Nesta, whether that's a bond or not, or he's just
I
frustrated
don't
that,
think that's too big of an assumption.
yeah. I that made me feel so much for him though too, where he was like, I always thought it
Mm-hmm.
was bullshit. And then I saw what you two could have. I saw
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of what that connection could be. And that rips my heart out a little bit more that that's what he
Mm-hmm.
wants. That's what he's looking for. That's what he's hoping for.
Yeah.
And, how long Reese waited 500 years. Cassian has been around 500 years.
Yep. I've been
How
waiting a
long do
long
you wait?
time. And even Rhysand asked him, like, are you happy? And he says, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So no, the answer was no. I mean, even though he's working on it, and
Right.
I think that's reflective too of how he treats, I guess, experiencing the world. He says
Mm-hmm.
he's flying through the biting cold, and he's like he could have shielded himself, but he wanted to feel it. He wanted to
Mm-hmm.
feel a little bit of that pain, and to me, that's another reflection of his ability to endure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it kind of reminds me of when they're talking about Nesta being death, and like he's like, it doesn't scare me, I've walked beside death my entire life. He is no stranger to discomfort and struggle and trauma, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe he is the perfect person for Nesta in that regard too.
That's what I was just thinking too, especially as you said that, like him wanting to kind of feel the cold.
Mhm.
he is willing and ready and open to feeling
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah.
Nesta is not. So maybe
Feeling
he is
nothing.
the
She's like,
perfect,
numb me up,
right?
babe.
Nothing. So maybe he's perfect for her to get her to feel. Maybe they
Yeah.
can kind of balance each other. He can kind of pull her out of that hole if she'll let him.
I know. I mean, like, listen, he was literally pulled out of a hole. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't believe his own mother. It's just like the way he describes her being treated. It's like, it's almost, this is how I imagine it. My cinematic references here.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine him flying down through this windy winter into the just the barren, forgotten streets of his childhood camp, and him seeing a vision play out in his own
Mm-hmm.
mind of the past, even though, like, obviously he was a baby, he's not going to remember this, but him envisioning his mother being thrown out of a warm building onto the cold streets right after giving birth, the trauma of that, sitting there holding her baby, wondering how she's going to keep him safe. And then I think about him using that rage to burn down that village.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's such a juxtaposition to the hope that he has that his people can be more. He's like, I hate you all so much that I'm going to destroy this entire village for what you did to my mother, and the unmarked dump grave that you put her in, who knows where. I'm going to burn
Mm-hmm.
it down to the ground. But also, I love my people so much and I want more for them. I want them to be better, to become something better.
Mm-hmm.
He has so many feelings inside and so much trauma himself of being unwanted and unloved by anyone other than his mother, who he was ripped away from so soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that quote we get from him, it was for her, for the mother buried here, perhaps buried nowhere. So it might never happen again. So my people, whom, so sorry,
So
what did I
his
write?
people.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
See, people, we struggle. It was for her, for the mother buried here, perhaps buried nowhere, so it might never happen again. So his people, whom he still loved despite their faults, might one day become something more, something better. And that quote, that for me was the reminder, the solidification of how Cassian fits into the court of dreams.
Yeah.
This is his dream.
Yep.
This is the difference that he wants to see in the world. And I was just so grateful for that moment from him and that clarity, even more
Mm-hmm.
so, of like who he was, why he fights for what he fights for, why he wants to train the females, why he's so like hell bent on helping a people who don't want to help him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he's also very observant. He says that, he goes to meet Emery. We talked about the one
Mm-hmm.
look that he gives. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at Emery and he thinks about, like, wonder what would happen if I put these two in a room together. They're very similar in a positive way. And then he starts to name those poses for Nesta. You already mentioned the one about, like, I don't want Cassie to know I'm reading smut, which I think is maybe my
Yeah.
favorite. But you have the slay your enemies pose that she takes, and the I will eat your eyes for breakfast pose. He is observant. He cares about her. He cares about the females in his life in general. But I love a male that is very aware and takes notice of the little things. And that
Mm-hmm.
is definitely him.
And so in tune with his emotions, like him, embracing Reese and like embracing Feyre and spinning her around, and but also he's this brave warrior, strong leader, but he's afraid of monsters and the beasts in the mountains. Like he pays attention to what's going on around him. He's in tune with his feelings. Like, my God, if we didn't have Reese, and there can be two of them, but I would beg to say that Cassian's kind of the perfect man.
Mm.
He's pretty great. He's
Yep.
very he's muscly, he's nice, he's wonderful. He's not always good with the compliments, but like he pays attention.
Hmm.
Pretty good dude.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Well, do you want to jump over to Miss Elaine?
Yes, let's get into our other Archeron sister.
Okay, so Elaine, I mean, I think it's fair to say that she's done some healing, which we all needed her to. She spends her days, around the townhouse doing what she needs to, but she's also silently still mourning, right? We still have these references to Feyre seeing her potentially still think about being human and
Mm.
think about Grayson and her ring and her marriage. Like she's still very silently mourning that life. But she has started to work towards a little bit more normalcy, which I think is good. I do think it's funny that she can't speak about like the impropriety of her phase cycle, which makes me go like, baby, you can't talk about your period. Is there going to be spice in your book one day? I hope so, but like the impropriety of it. Like she's such a lady.
Right. I know. I think about that too of just how pure Elaine is.
Yeah.
And not that everything has to be so intense,
Yeah.
right? Not that we have to be fucking in the air, but I think about that too. And I don't know. You could tell me and I'll find out here when I read the next however many chapters. But do we get an Elaine POV in Frost and Starlight?
I don't think we have one.
Okay, okay. So that'll be super interesting eventually if we
Mhm.
do an ACOFAS or in our books coming from
I don't
SJM.
think I've ever read one.
Okay, okay, interesting. And that if we do get an Elaine book, I'd be so curious to know like how
Hmm.
that will read, how that will play out because she is so pure, comes across so pure. And I say comes across because she's got a little bit of edge in these
Oh yeah.
chapters.
Oh
So
yeah.
maybe we're breaking away from that, kind of I don't know what the word is, but I was going to say prissy. That's not the right word either. I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm making movements with my hands for
Yep.
those of you watching.
Ha!
Yeah, like my little mousy, tiny, restrained,
Yeah.
all the things. There's a word
I
for it.
completely agree. And that's I think why the attitude she gives in these chapters is so interesting. It makes me want to jump into her brain because there's
Yeah.
clearly more happening than just this naivety and innocence. Um, you know,
You
she
think it's
even
a mask?
snarks back. No, I think it's dual purposed. I think it's a little
Okay.
bit of masking and authentic.
And
Like
her.
I do
Okay.
think she is like her interaction with Azriel is actually a good example of this for me. Like she is sweet, kind, demure. She wants to go take her
Demure.
floweried apron off before she comes to dinner. It's all these little things about her that are very proper. I do think that
Mm-hmm.
is true, but I think that when she doesn't want to show the pieces of herself that society says she's supposed to hide, that's when it's also a mask.
That's fair. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. That just came to my brain, and I was
That's
like,
okay.
do you think it's? But yeah, I think it's kind of a dual thing.
Yeah. But the edge that she shows in these chapters, for example, and she's like talking to Feyre, are you asking me if Nesta is coming here as my sister or as a seer? She wants to know if she's like, are you like, you want to talk to me as a sister or are you using me?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that would be a very difficult gift to have to wonder what type of interactions are people genuinely having with you,
Yeah.
which is another thing for her to navigate about herself. And, then she speaks very boldly, particularly about Nesta. And she's like, the remark she makes about, is Nesta even still a part of this family? Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
that's quite the.
bold, right? She's like, is she? And she doesn't act like it. I mean, like those are snarky. And I just think that it's so interesting because Elaine is so used to Nesta doting on her and making
Mm-hmm.
Elaine the priority and Elaine the most important thing and care for Elaine. And then, is kind of taken aback by Nesta retreating within to herself and numbing herself. I mean, Nesta's always been cold towards others, but never Elaine. And perhaps now
Yeah.
Elaine can see what others have always kind of known, but then realizes that now it's happening to her. She's getting that. She's on the receiving end, if you will. And I don't know. Elaine's like pissed off about Nesta's treatment of her, but then I think, well, maybe it's time for Nesta to be the one to be cared for.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not all about you, Elaine. Maybe this time you've got to realize that Nesta's not going to be here to take care of you like she always has, but let's use your history as evidence of her love for you. And maybe
Right.
it's time to turn the tables a little bit. But instead, what Elaine does is instead of trying to care for Nesta and be there and understanding and patient like Feyre is,
Mm-hmm.
she's like, does she even want to be here? I don't know. Done with her.
Yeah.
She turns the cheek rather quick, which kind of makes me go, whoa, kid, you good?
Do you? Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think
Do
about
you?
that? Like,
Now, this is not Elaine, this is Nesta. And this is something I was just kind of like playing through in my head. Do you think Nesta's view of Elaine was shattered a little bit during her killing the King of Hybern, too? Like, maybe she's not this doe-eyed creature that I have to care for. Like, I'm wondering if there's a little bit of like
hmm,
breaking
she
that
can
like
hold her own.
vision.
Like, I don't need to be
Yeah,
here for
I don't
Elaine that much.
have
She
to.
can hold her own.
Yeah,
She's
and I don't
got
have to
people.
care for her while I'm falling apart.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair in many ways. Like she's clearly, I mean, look at what I think it was she said to Nesta like, "Oh, I don't need you to help me. I have Nuala and Caradwyn."
Mm-hmm.
Elaine has been slowly separating herself and dismissing Nesta's care over time, whether it was done in a in a way that was supposed to be hurtful or not. Um
Mm-hmm.
because I know that's kind of left up to interpretation, but I think yeah, she sees Elaine be strong and go for it, and maybe she
Maybe she
does
thinks she
think
doesn't need her
like
anymore.
I can go off to do my thing, like she's good, she's cared for.
Mm-hmm. So let's
But
step up Elaine and
yeah, that's
be
what I
the
was thinking.
bigger, better
I was like,
sister.
Elaine, I think it's time for you to step up considering all that Nesta has dedicated her goodness to you.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that was my feeling. I didn't really I like the edge of Elaine, but I don't like the direction it's being pushed.
Yeah, I agree. It
Yeah.
was jarring a little bit.
Hmm. Now, speaking of Elaine and her feels, yeah, girl, I think she got feels for Az. It is so obvious in these chapters. I at the beginning I described it as like two middle schoolers.
Yeah.
But she finds him and immediately pauses her conversation. She's like having a full on conversation, eyes lock, just stops the all thought. And it's as if she's so distracted by him. She stands speechless and he takes the potatoes from her. Her hands are just left in the same shape, like she doesn't know what to do with her body. Dare I say, I think she's a little smitten.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then I think too, like if we're ever gonna get spice from Elaine, and Asriel does feel like somebody who would treat her very nicely the first time, who would make it really sweet and comfortable. And then I could imagine that as she becomes more comfortable, that he would have a few tricks up his sleeve as well. So
Hey.
might be a good person for her first time, but
Hey.
I agree there is something going on there, especially when Feyre goes, Feyre felt more than saw her sister go still as Asriel approached, and her throat bobbed. Elaine
Yeah.
kind of like she's
Yeah.
kind of taken aback, you know. I think it's
Yeah.
very much like when you see like when I saw my husband for the first time, like, oh, he's cute. Oh, how do I
How do
handle
I
myself?
interact?
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Now, this is not in my notes, so it's a little bit of a segue before I dive into my planned conversation, but I just thought about this. Elaine is a seer. I don't know how deep she is into her seer gifts. We have no idea what's in her head or her point of view. Point of view. POV, point of view. But has she looked into her own future? And does she know she's not meant to be with Lucian?
With
And
Lucian.
that she's
Can
gonna
she
end
do
up with
that?
I don't know. I don't have
That
the
would
answer to the
be
questions I'm asking.
wild.
And is she going, oh no, I'm supposed to be with him, and oh my gosh, this is the one I'm gonna fall in love with, and now she's like awkward around him. However,
And why
we
she would
have
take
had
truth teller.
we have had a discussion about, or maybe taking truth teller was what opened that path. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. I'm just theorizing here. However, we have had a discussion about fate and how your fate can change depending on your choices. And so maybe she sees multiple paths for herself. A path with Lucian should
Which
she
do I
choose it.
take?
Her
Hmm.
fate being not set, but multiple destinies if she wants
I
them.
wonder if it's like, do I stay the person I've been and need to be cared for? Is it Lucian? Or do I become a new version of myself? Kind of like Azriel did.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's Azriel. Yeah, I like that idea of like, it's not set in stone, especially for her who can kind of see where her path may take her.
Yeah, that's wild. Sorry. Okay, so back. I mean, it was
Cool
great
theory. I
segue.
like it.
I'm like, ooh, that'd be fun. Okay, so we're sitting all down for dinner, and although she doesn't explicitly say it, Amryn digs a little deeper into what Elaine is pointing out, right? Elaine is curious about Amryn's form and may very well have to do with her wondering if she can go back to being human or not. And Amryn, shuts that down real quick. To say like, hey, you can't go back. This is your destiny. You cannot become human again. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, is being a fae such a bad thing? I understand,
She's not allowing herself to see the beauty of the life that she now has.
I know.
For somebody
And I
who
mean,
did look at the positive and the beauty of
yes,
like the squalor they were
yes,
in, and it's like, girl, where is that like you can put your rose colored glasses back on for a few
I know.
minutes.
And that being said, like, okay, she did lose her way of life. Like, that's not a small thing. She had so many experiences and what she felt was a beautiful life. And she did have to say goodbye to it so abruptly and in such a traumatic way. But there's so much more that the world you're in has to offer. And I feel like she just hasn't quite opened herself up to that. But, maybe being immortal isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe she's thinking about, you know, the fact that she'll never die, but she'll watch all the humans she knows around her that she's ever known, her friends,
Her
die.
father.
Well, her father's already dead, so maybe she can move
I
on
know,
from that
but
one.
like
But
seeing that
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I just her inner monologue. I'm craving it.
would be very interesting. It would be, especially in terms of Azrael, who I just want to mention here
Hmm.
really quickly as we kind of transition into him. As Elaine is talking to Amarin and kind of like asking these sort of pointed questions about, like, oh, how do you pick your form? Could I be a human again? And he kind of looks at Elaine after this moment with pity and sorrow.
Mm,
And I wonder, and now I'm literally going to transition into Azrael. Sorry, guys. But I wonder if for him, that's pity and sorrow like twofold. On one hand, looking at her and being sad that she can't kind of accept where she's at and that this is what her life is now going to be. But then the other hand, for Azrael, maybe it's a little bit of understanding of
mm.
him not wanting to be who he is. He
Illyrian.
doesn't want to be Illyrian. So maybe he
Yeah.
kind of understands that a little bit of of not having choice in who you are, but still
Yeah.
having to find a way to sort of deal with it and become the best version of, I guess, what you were given in life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe then he is the best person to help her with that destiny.
I think so. I think I would like Azrael and Lane, but we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Because I'm sure I could like Azrael and Lucian is what I was gonna say.
Oh, oh,
That
that's
could be
different.
interesting. I was gonna actually, as no, my God, Lucian and Elaine could be interesting too. Can't get Azrael off
Yeah.
my
No,
mind.
I think so too. I think that just they're we have not had enough of their interactions that aren't awkward to
Yeah,
fully visualize it. But we all love Lucian, so why wouldn't we love
him for
her
Elaine.
and him, you know?
Yeah, I know. If not
So,
Elaine, I hope he finds his person. I do.
yeah, for sure. Now, back to Azriel. Okay, so he doesn't technically winnow, and I did find that interesting,
Yeah,
you know.
same,
Um I
same.
I uh I think you wrote here something about his shadows, but yeah, he doesn't technically winnow.
Yeah, Reese says that his shadows were different from like even his powers that his powers
Hmm.
summoned and spoke to. He was born in lightless, airless prison meant to break him. Instead, he learned its language. And
That's beautiful.
that we get that clarification that Azrael doesn't winnow, I did think was super interesting. I was like, I need all the details. I need the Azrael POV of like,
Hmm.
how does this work? What is this like for you to be a shadow and move as a shadow? And it's so
Yeah.
cool.
So cool. Now, speaking of his shadows, apparently he is not using them to track Lucian's movements because he deems it an invasion of Elaine's privacy. Huh.
I also found that interesting. I was like, thought that it would be a violation for Elaine to track Lucian.
Huh.
Interesting. Would it have did you feel that it was a violation to keep tabs on Feyre and Tamlin for Reese? Or do you have some feelings for Elaine and you don't
Huh.
want to know what Lucian and Elaine may be up to there, Mr. Azriel?
That seems more likely. For sure. Now, he does seem to be keeping himself rather busy during these chapters. And what is he doing? Well, he's busy sweeping. Sweeping and preparing the home and cleaning. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a fascinating visual that I'm quite enjoying. And I don't know why I can't unpicture him in his Illyrian leathers. Like, I can't like see him in a different outfit. So it's just him,
Yeah,
his wings, his siphons, his Illyrian leathers, sweeping.
sweeping. And then fixing the decorations. I
It's like, this looks
cackled.
like shit. Hang on.
And I get it as a type A girly. That's so type A of him to walk in and be like, this is terrible. What have you guys done? I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to fix it before anybody else gets here.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I really am beginning to enjoy his character more and more. Like, he is such a true gentleman, and he's making sure those decorations are fixed. He's taking the food from Elaine that she has been cooking in the kitchen the whole day and like telling her, have a seat, relax, take a load
Mm-hmm.
off. And I'm sure that's something, by the way, that Elaine is not accustomed to, considering the customs she came from in the human land, like the expectations of women. So, but it's just really sweet for Azrael to
So
step up and do
modern.
that. Yes.
All
And
our Bat Boys are so modern.
yes, I mean, modern, except for apparently Azrael is the only one who's like demanding everybody waits to eat until Elena's
This is
returned
interesting.
and filled her plate. And they're all confused by that. And, Rhysand gives a little bit of explanation to Feyre. He's like, his mom was a servant, so he's like very particular about how females are treated. However, I don't know if I buy that full reasoning for like that's the reason he treats Elaine that way, because she is clearly not a servant. And
Mm-hmm.
if all of this were true and were the case, would they not be inviting Nuala and Caradwyn to come sit with them at dinner? Because
Right,
they're
eat with them.
technically the servants. And I really believe that Azriel is equally smitten with Elaine and pays her respect because he understands the importance of how to treat a woman because of his mother, but not necessarily because he sees her as like serving and just, she brought the food out. That's, I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
she helped make it a little bit too. But I also think that wouldn't Reese know this? And it makes me wonder, what does Reese know?
I then think
Really,
too,
is he
is
covering
it
up
part
for
of
Az?
Reese covering up because he knows that
Yeah,
like he
like
likes
he knows that
Elaine?
Azriel has these types of feelings and doesn't like want to tell Feyre that he thinks Azriel has these types of feelings because then it would be complicated, hard to figure out for Lucian and Azriel. Feyre is friends with Lucian. It's just very
Yeah.
complicated. And Reese likes to stay out of Moore's little love stuff. So maybe he's
Mm-hmm.
also like, I don't want to be in that. I'm just going to pretend it's about his mother trauma.
And more is something that I think of too, because whether she is or she isn't, she's also kind of wrapped up in that because Feyre knows that Moore doesn't love Azriel that way, but Rhysand doesn't know that. So it might be a little bit too of like, oh no, he's just acting this way because that's how he would treat his mom, and there's that trauma there and whatever. When in reality, he knows how Azriel feels about Morgan
Yeah. Yeah.
but doesn't know all of the history there. So I think it's like trying to protect on multiple levels
Yeah.
and just here's a general understanding of why he may have done what he did.
Well, speaking of Morgan, I was very excited to get her POV in this book. You call her a conundrum. I call her an enigma. Tomato,
Mm-hmm.
tomato. Such fun insight here.
I agree. I was actually because we only get her the one time so far, right? It was
Hmm.
just under the Hewn City. And her inner monologue was one that I was shocked but excited to see. And I hope that we get more in the second half of this book because the one piece of inner monologue we've gotten was so sad and
Hmm.
so, I mean, it is and it's not. Like, it's uncharacteristic of the more that we think of, but it is who she is as we get to know her more. And this, gosh, more. This quote in her inner monologue, pathetic, cowardly, and pathetic. Truth is your gift, truth is your curse. I want to see I want the badass inner monologue. I want to
Yeah.
see another version of that,
Okay,
not
well, is
just
that her
this
mask?
because right, it's hiding, it's putting on a face, to not let others see, what's beneath the surface. It was sad to see this beneath the surface. We knew it was there, right? But to have
Yeah.
that really come from her was
I
different.
I didn't know. I didn't expect her to call herself pathetic and cowardly.
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect that to come from her inner monologue, actually.
Yeah.
That was surprising for me. And it really shows that she is maybe not the pillar of strength that we all assume that she is on the outside. And she says that she doesn't use her true voice when she visits the Hewn City, reminding us that she's really never once shown her true identity out of fear for how they would retaliate or act towards her, or potentially destroy the one thing that she holds the closest to her. Why would she be the beacon of light that she is to everyone else there when she just knows that they'll put it out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she describes, or she is being described as happy and light, but she's such the opposite of that dark place that she grew up in. And I understand her wanting to hide herself a little bit and to mask, but there's clearly still a lot of pain that we maybe think she has worked through, but she hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really feel that pain from her going back in her memory. And I'm so glad this is the moment we got to have to understand
It
because it
was
was
important.
so insightful. And,
Mm-hmm.
she talks about the pain when she was left at the Autumn Court border. Now, this actually on the first read for me was, whoa, how sad. I hate this for her. This is horrible. On the second read, I had some red flags and I would like to share them with all of you. Okay.
Drop
I
them.
thought it
Drop
was
the red
very
flags.
odd. Like, she should have Fae healing. And it's
Mhm.
not to diminish what was done for her, but comparatively to the wounds that have been described thus far in this universe that are far worse, 3 nails in your abdomen should not have left her incapacitated.
Right. I thought that too.
Thus, leading me to wonder why. Now we know the note was nailed into her with 3 iron nails. Iron being the optimal word there that piqued my interest. And while we learn from Tamlin and Lucian that the myth about iron having an effect on the myth that we have about iron having an effect on Fae, they said was in fact that it was a myth. It's not true. It's just
Hmm.
something you've heard about. Okay, but that doesn't seem to be the case for Moore, right? It's
It incapacitates
debilitating
her.
pain, right? It's described as
Hmm.
the center of that pain radiating outward like living fire with each uneven, rasping breath. And I think about the center of the pain being like where the nail came from, and it's radiating out from the nail. And then the sentence is unfinished, which I find very, again, those unfinished freaking sentences, those interrupted sentences.
So many.
Yes, and we know that Moore's bloodline is ancient and that the myth about iron affecting Fae is also ancient. So perhaps Moore is a different type of Fae from
Hmm.
the ones that we know and is still affected by iron. Even the Autumn Court brothers are astonished and leave their sentence unfinished. They say, but they nailed a and didn't finish the sentence. Again, the unfinished fucking sentences.
Mm.
But all of this on the second read, after hearing about Cassian's multiple times that he has been broken down and still crawling
Hmm.
through it, still fighting through it, Azrael flying with shredded wings when he's been put through a lot of pain in his life, right? They all have these horrifying descriptions of functioning through horrible trauma and pain, but she cannot function whatsoever with 3 iron nails in her.
Hmm.
3 small holes, which I mean, maybe the iron nails are like really, really big, but nonetheless, I have questions more.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, especially the iron nails. And I part of me was like, is it just again this sort of like inner struggle that she has that was debilitating too? I don't know, but more is
She's
a
worried about
enigma, a
dying in that
conundrum.
moment.
Yeah, she's so interesting, and I want more of more. I want more of all of the like night court people. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Illyrians are different, and then you've got Reese, who's this all powerful, most powerful High Lord ever with like kind of interesting powers, and Moore, who's of this ancient line with an interesting power of Shadow Singer, who's unique. Like we've got so much uniqueness
Mm-hmm.
in the night
Mm-hmm.
court. Not that we don't elsewhere, but that's just where we are. So it is interesting. I
Yeah.
want to know if Moore will ever take out her rage on her father or like on Tamlin. We get this she's, thinks or says, I want to kill him. And so I'm like, are we ever going to get that? Will she ever do that? Um, I do think it's really great, though, that Reese wants her to go help with negotiations
Mm-hmm.
across the continent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that he tells her, this is not an order, it is a choice. It's an offer for you to not only get away from Kier, but also an offer to allow her to be out in the world once again. She's been trapped
Yeah.
essentially within Valaris and within the Night Court for 50 years, and
Yep.
Moore is somebody who travels and who sees the world and takes in other cultures and meets people and has friends across the world. And so for her to maybe have the opportunity to do that, I'm curious to see what that storyline then looks like
Yeah.
for her as she kind of breaks out of maybe not just her physical boundaries, but also maybe
Mm-hmm.
her mental and emotional ones too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have this noted, but I do want to make sure we mention it. It's a little bit more lighthearted because everything we've
It
said about
is.
Moore has been very heavy, but terrible gift giver, apparently.
So funny. I would not have guessed that she was the bad gift giver.
I know. Here's another silk shirt and some gaudy cufflinks.
It's hilarious. The fact that they describe too that like Cassian just has these like silk ruffle shirts. Azriel's got a chest full of daggers he'll never use. And I've got some questions in the question section here coming up in just a minute. But I'm like, man, what do you give someone after 500 years
Yeah,
if you're already a bad gift giver? How do you get better at it?
I know. We can't all be perfect. Okay.
No, and Moore seems to be fairly perfect in many other ways, so we'll give her
Yes,
this.
yes. Well, speaking of prior perfection, I guess, we've got Amryn, our 15,000-year-old baddie. And while her and Varian haven't officially declared anything, he may be joining them for Solstice. In fact, we end these chapters with a room stankin' of their essence after their romp in the sheets. So
Yeah.
Amryn's enjoying her human life, jigsaw puzzles and all. And
So funny.
I know, I love that. I love that. She's like, I'm bored. It's only 5,000 pieces.
I've done 5 of them in 3 days. Like, oh my God. She needs something else to do.
I know. Speaking of the hilarity, I was not expecting our humor to come from Amryn's I guess interactions and her eating food for the first time being absolutely disgusted. She's like, give me my blood back. What's even more hilarious to me is her talking about using a toilet. And I mean the entire
Yeah.
inner circle is cracking up. They cannot hold it back. And I guess I didn't realize that that was something she didn't have to do in her other form.
Right?
What? What do
You
you
for
mean?
for thousands of years you didn't use the bathroom? Where
What?
did it go? Does the
I mean,
blood
she
just seep
wasn't
into you?
consuming like chewable food. But you
But I
didn't
took it
pee?
as exactly. You didn't even have to pee.
What? I don't know.
Nothing came out of you.
I have so many thoughts about that. What?
I will say though that despite the deeply unrelatable nature of that, I related to her so deeply though when she goes, "I should have selected a male form. At least you can whip it out and go wherever you like." We talked about it earlier, but
Yeah.
I have never related to Amryn more than in that moment.
Absolutely. It's hilarious. I love it. Now, there were some moments for me that I had some questions about, some things that maybe didn't quite click. So, Rhysand says he lets some of his power seep out, and then he puts his chilled hands into his pockets. Okay, we know Rhys in his pockets. Does he put his hands in his pockets because they're getting cold from the winter? Or does he put his hands in his pockets because they get cold when he uses his power? I don't know. Found that interesting.
That man in his pockets.
I'm just curious. I mean, that would make sense. Like every time I use my power, my hands get cold and put them in my pocket.
Or I keep them in my pockets because I don't have to use my hands, but it still makes them cold.
Yeah, I
So
don't
I just
know.
keep them
I'm
there.
like, I would like, I don't think I'll ever quite get the explanation for that one, but
Yeah,
I
probably
would like it.
not.
The way Eris speaks to Moore in her memory feels very different from how he turns around and speaks to his brothers, right? He's looking at Moore, it's just them two, and he says, I take it you do not wish to live here, Morrigan. That feels almost kind.
Right. Not
And then
this evil,
yeah. And
nasty.
then he turns around not to her, but to his brothers to say, I'm not in the habit of fucking Illyrian leftovers. He is absolutely masking. And we already know there's multiple sides to him and how he feels about like forcing his father to come and fight the war with them, about him being willing to step up. He's willing to take the Faebane right away.
Mhm.
He I think he wants more. He tells them about, you have no idea what I've been through for saving my brother's ass, the trauma he's experienced. And here it makes you question, he says, like, ask more the truth about that moment.
Mhm.
And we don't
He's
really get his perspective, but we get the
Mhm.
tone that he speaks to her in.
more and more we're being led to believe that maybe he's not his father. Maybe he and Lucian are a lot more alike than Eris and Baron. I would love to see Eris more and
Mhm.
maybe see him, take over Baron's seat. But I am curious to see how he continues to play out because I'm kind of assuming he's going to be, if not a main character, at least kind of a steady side character. He's really kind
He's
of,
appeared enough.
yeah, he's been built up quite a bit in ACO War,
Mhm.
and we continue to kind of talk about him. So I'm curious to see how he fits in as we continue through, what's going on in Prythian. This does not matter, but I want to know, where do Azrael, Moore, and Cassian live?
Great question. We
I
don't really get it said.
We don't. And I guess for some reason I was under the assumption that like they lived in the townhouse, or not in the townhouse because that's Reese's space, but like I don't know, I never thought about it until here when we like specify where Nesta, Lucian, and Elaine are living, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, where do the rest of them live? Do they have
I
apartments? Do
assume
they have
they all have houses or apartments somewhere.
Yeah,
Like Amryn.
but then I also just feel like they're always around. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Where did Truth Teller come from? How do we have this blade? Where's it from? Why does Azrael have it? I want to know some more information about that. We briefly touch on Bryaxis. Where is that gal? How is she hiding from them? What is she doing? When are we gonna see her again? Azrael's like, I'll go hunt her down, and Reese is like, we'll figure it out later. Like, okay, we must not be worried about the terrifying monster that much. Um, Azrael, after Solstice, will be heading to Rose Hall. And I said, what's that? And then Reese says, take her a gift from him. So again, I said, what's Rose Hall? Who's there? Where's
Mm.
that at? What does that have to do with anything? We're sending people places after Solstice. Like Cassian's got to go back to the Illyrian war camp and take care of that. Morgan's going to head into the continent. And Az is headed to Rose Hall. I've never heard that
Mm.
before. Feyre. These are food for thoughts. Feyre's only 21. When you're centuries old, do you celebrate your birthday every year?
Mm.
Like, do at some point do you stop? Do you
Mm.
stop?
543, 547.
Right? That's just I'm like, do you? That's a lot of candles. It's a lot of candles. Now more food for thought. Granted, we or I don't know who's going to be with who, but Sarah J. Maas likes a happy ending. Would you be okay with an Archeron sister ending up with each Bat Boy, or do you think there should be other fish in the pond? I think that's like something to mull over for
I
all of
absolutely would
us.
be okay with them each ending up with a bat boy.
I
As
would
long as
too.
I then can see who Lucian ends up with.
Yes. If Elaine and
Because I
Lucian do
care.
not end up together, I want to know who Lucian ends up with. I agree. But I would be totally content with us putting a little bow on whenever this series ends and it's Feyre Reese, Nesta Cassian, Elaine, and Azrael. And I'm just going to say that. I would be
I
okay with
agree.
that.
I agree.
Okay. And then my last question. Feyre is really contemplating what to give Reese as a gift. What is she planning then? And I have two theories because we have this moment of her with the shopkeeper, the weaver, and she almost has like clarity.
Mm.
So I have two theories on what these gifts are. I don't know if they're correct, but I'm going to throw them out there. The
Shoot.
first gift, shoot, should I not? Should I?
No, no, shoot. Like, go
Oh,
for it.
shoot, go for it. My first thing is I have two gifts that she'll give him. She's going to finally give him a painting. Like physically gift him a painting because
Hmm.
that'll be the first she's ever physically given him. And my second one, the vibe that I'm getting from her realization that if her or Reese died and they wouldn't have a piece of each other in the world, like the Weaver talks about and that feeling Feyre gets in the shop, I think Feyre's going to tell Reese that she's ready to have a baby. I think that's her gift to Reese.
Ooh.
That she wants to
Ooh.
take that next step so that if something ever happens to either one of them, they don't have to feel the way that the Weaver feels.
Do you want to know what's really fun for me?
You know.
Nope, I've completely forgotten.
Oh,
I don't remember. I have read
uh,
this book 3 times. I don't remember what it is. I know exactly what everybody else gets.
but not
I
Reese.
can remember that. I can't remember this one. So I'm going to
That's
make a
funny.
guess. And I was like, ooh, the red lingerie from that one time when he sent that vision into her mind.
Which, like,
Would be
well,
fun.
but she's wearing that, isn't it? When she brings him the plate of food, she's wearing. I thought we got that she went and picked that up. Maybe she
Well,
didn't.
maybe she did. I don't
I
remember.
Who
But
knows? But that would be a good gift too. But those are
yeah, so
my
I'm
theories.
excited to figure it out too because I have already forgotten. You guys,
Maybe it's not a good gift.
there's so much information to remember from all these books that there are moments where I'm like, no matter how often I've read them, I need the quick notes where I'm like, huh?
There's so much. That's why we do this, so that when we get to 6 months from now and we have two new books, we can all
Like,
come
I'm
back and
ready.
re-listen and be like, okay,
Got it.
where were we questioning things? What's connecting? What's not?
Yes, absolutely. Well, this leads us into our end of our episode and our heroine's journey. Now, one of the most honest parts of Feyre's journey into this quote normal life is learning how to enjoy the peace that she has earned. It's not always easy to realize that you can relax into happiness when chaos, survival, and fear have been embedded into your very existence. And suddenly it feels like you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong. Feyre's journey reminds us that allowing ourselves to experience peace is its own kind of courage, one that asks us to soften, to trust, and to believe that we are worthy of something good. However, not everyone is ready to find peace. And sometimes it's those who we love most who are fighting their own silent battles. And for Feyre, this is seen in both of her sisters, but Nesta is now the one who is in the darkness, broken, angry, unreachable. And it takes strength to hold patience and compassion for those people while remembering to not take their pain personally. And even when we want to walk away, when we are being pushed away, even, we have to remember to choose connection, to choose love, even when it would be easier to just close ourselves off.
I love when our heroines' journeys intertwine, as they often
Hmm.
do. Quote, it feels selfish to take the time when there's so much to do. Feyre's still healing, right? We talk a lot about that. And in this moment from her, we're reminded that healing doesn't always look like actions. Sometimes it looks like pause, like choosing to live, fully live in the moment that you fought hard to reach for. You know, we oftentimes keep looking at what comes next. I'm working for the
Mm.
next thing. We're not living in this moment, good or bad. Feyre struggles with it. She feels the pull to keep fixing and rebuilding and saving and the next and the next and the next. But I think this is the shift too in these chapters and in this book is realizing that constantly pouring from an empty cup isn't strength, it's survival. Because if we can't care for ourselves, how can we truly care for anyone else? And I think we see that echoed again in the world around her, in the Weaver, in the creation of things like void and hope, and in the idea that even amidst destruction, something meaningful can still be made. It is hard and it hurts, but if I were to stop, then there would be no hope shining in the void. Because not every step forward has to be this huge battle between good and evil. Sometimes it's just choosing to rest, to feel, to exist in the moment, because the people who change the world are also allowed to live in it.
Hmm. I know you want to keep going. I know you want to turn the page, but we got to close the book on this one.
But hey, every epic needs a cliffhanger, and this is probably the lightest cliffhanger we've ever left on, right? So let's
The eve of
savor this
solstice.
suspense. Yes, we'll savor it.
Remember to like, share, subscribe, and write a review.
Absolutely, please do.
And before you remove your bookmark to prepare for next week, we will be doing chapters 16 through the end. Yeah, we're already going to be to the end of this itty bitty book. And remember that whether you're conquering your own kingdom or just cozying up with a good book, you are the main character of your own epic tale.
Okay, queens, for real now, put that book down, hold your crown high, and we will catch you on the next page.